You and I both know this chat been going crazy. You took it off last night when you went on live. The next conversation that we got up in the chat, Coach, is the Big Ten closing the gap on the SEC. The Big Ten taking over the SEC, Carl. Let's get straight to it, my man.
So, Smoke, I'm going to tell you in the group chat, number one, I'm from St. Louis. So, St. Louis is in the heart of Big Ten country prior to Missouri leaving and going to the SEC, leaving from the old Big 12, Big 8, whatever it was at the time. And so, the biggest argument we have in the group chat all the time is the Big Ten versus the SEC. And, Smoke, you know the SEC has been dominant in terms of football at that level. So for me, I think with the combining of conferences, when you think about USC, Oregon, UCLA, and Washington going to the Big Ten, I do think that the gap is smaller than what it was. I still would put the SEC out in front of the Big Ten, Smoke, but the talent, the coaches, the resources that the Big Ten has in terms of exposure to a national audience, new deal with CBS TV for the Big Ten. Now, I think that the Big Ten schools, when I talk to recruits in recruiting, are spending a little more on the NIL than some of the SEC counterparts. I think they adjusted to that a little quicker. And when you think of guys like Caleb Downs leaving the SEC to go play at a place like Ohio State, you definitely, Smoke, have to put the Big Ten in the mix. Quinshon Junkins leaving and going and playing in the Big Ten. I think that right now they are ready to explode and ready to take another level. And if you add in the fact that the GOAT, Nick Saban, retired, that adds another dimension, to put the shift to the Big Ten as well. Because most people from the Big Ten would argue that the majority of those championships that the SEC is so proud of is won by one guy, Nick Saban of Alabama. And the
Now,
conference takes credit for it.
now, Coach, you gave me all those factors. You got to tell me how is this going to happen? How are they going to make this happen in taking over the SEC?
Number one, they have to they have to get teams in the playoffs, right? Because it's going to boil down to who wins national championships. Michigan got you jump started last year with Jim Harbaugh, and they had been knocking on the door before that. You need Ohio State to close the deal. Ohio State, Urban Meyer and Jim Tressel just told you, has a roster like you've never seen there before. So from a championship standpoint, you need that. They need to continue to expand on player acquisition through recruiting. That's both transfer portal and high school. I think high school recruiting is tougher for Big Ten programs because most of the states that are natural resources for the Big Ten do not have spring football. So it makes the evaluations in the front office department, something we'll speak on later in the show, even more important. And recruits don't know what traditional blue buds are anymore. It doesn't hold weight. So it's an opportunity for some of these dynamic coaches to go in there and really make a run in the recruiting game, Smoke.
Now, Coach, I know that you got players in your chat, coaches in your chat, agents in your chat. What are some of the benefits of your guys saying that the Big Ten is having over the SEC?
Well, quarterbacks can be evaluated playing in inclement weather. We know it's warm throughout the South. You have to deal with weather conditions if you're going to play in the Big Ten up north. And when you get into championship football late in November, late in December, the running game comes into play. And while we're talking running game, let's talk about more of a traditional NFL systematic way of playing football in the original West Coast offense. Now, the verbiage has changed from paragraph plays the way that it used to be. But if you're an offensive lineman, a tight end type guy, there are multiple options in the Big Ten for you to go to using the big boys in the trenches. Offensive linemen want to come off the ball. They want to play a punishing style of football. The Big Ten across the board offers that. They got guys also in the Big Ten that are starting to run. I think Urban Meyer, during his time at Ohio State, came up there with an SEC mentality, the need for speed, guys at the skill positions. You have to be able to compete in the trenches and the offensive line and having guys on the perimeter who can run because the SEC is going to throw big time athletic defensive linemen at you that are twitchy. You see what these guys are running on the edge at the combine. Guys going 4-4, 4-3, low 4.5s coming off that edge. You got to have the offensive linemen who can deal with that. And I think that's what the Big Ten has to do to continue to separate itself.
Now, see, Reed, let's just have a quick matchup issue, right? Let's just match them up. All right, we're gonna go blue blood versus blue blood, and just go on down the list. We'll start at the top. Bama, Ohio State, and we'll just break it down in coaching, players that's gotten drafted, and what they'll look like if they ever went head to head. Give it to me. First one.
Right now, if I'm talking this season only, I'm going to give the edge here slightly to Ohio State. Ohio State returns a bunch of dudes. They recruiting class was special, especially in the transfer portal, adding Caleb Downs. And I'm going to give Will Howard more credit than you've given him on our show. He's a guy that I was able to see play a little bit for Kansas State because he was playing against those Missouri Tigers. I think that Ohio State, I'm going to slightly give them the edge.
All right, let's go physical play versus physical play. Old Michigan, Georgia, and Bulldogs down there. What you got?
I got the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, they're going to play angry this year. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to come out playing really in attack mode. They're going to be aggressive and run downhill. They're one of the teams that's kind of built with the similar ideology of some of those Big Ten teams from a physicalness. Have you seen the men that they have on the offensive line at the University of Georgia and the defensive line? They control the trenches. They got great quarterback play this year with Carson Beck, and they got a speedy guy on the outside like Dominic Lovett who can help extend plays and hit the big play over the top on third down. I like the Georgia Bulldogs right there.
Now let's go back up north and go Penn State, the almost team. That's another team that we know that needs to get over that hump. And let's match them up versus Hook'em Horns, receive Coach Sark over there in Texas.
I got to go with Texas and Sark right now because Texas has been able to break through and Penn State hasn't. Penn State has a really strong program in place, but hasn't been able to get over the hump against Ohio State and Michigan, something they're going to have to be able to do to take the next step. But Texas has already shown you they can make it to the playoffs. Quinn Ewers returning, freaky receiver core, defense that flies around. I'm going to go with Texas.
All right, Coach, here we go. We're going to get you another matchup. New Bloods, Oklahoma, and your guy Dan Lanning, Oregon.
Well, I don't think we can call Oklahoma a new blood smoke. They've been one
in the SEC
football, but they are new to the SEC. I think that Oklahoma is going to have a big hill to climb this year against a school like Oregon because they lost a lot of beef on the offensive line. And although Jackson Darnold is well praised and he's highly touted, we just haven't seen if he's ready for the bright lights yet. I'm going to give Oregon the edge here. Oregon is loaded up front. Johnny Cornelius, Marcus Harper, NFL guys up front. Dylan Gabriel, who was a Sooner, going to be the quarterback in Eugene this year. I'm going to give the edge right now to the Oregon Ducks if I'm comparing those two ball clubs.
Coach, we're going to wrap it up with the last one. Ole Miss versus Iowa. Consistent teams, Coach. Middle of the pack, but this is what both conferences going to live on. 10-win teams going to battle it out. What you got?
Contrasting styles here. And I love the program that has been built at Iowa by Coach Ferentz and what he's done for Iowa. But what Lane Kiffin is putting together at Ole Miss, especially the way he went deep this year in the transfer portal with some of the guys that he got, I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think that they would just score. They would light up the scoreboard. And Iowa hasn't offensively been able to keep up. If we go in SEC versus Big Ten and that, I'm going to give the edge to Ole Miss Smoke.
Coach, go ahead and wrap it up.
Now, what we have to basically, when we look at this situation between the Big Ten and SEC, the gap is closing. The Big Ten hasn't taken it over yet, but we'll see what the future holds.